Segment 3, Gold and Black Live. Brian Newbert fresh off the road, and Jerry Palm on the phone, I believe. And the good thing is, Jerry, I don't know if Jerry's now, I know you're busy getting ready for all this basketball stuff, Jerry, but you're not necessarily traveling as much right now, or is that not true? Are you gone a lot on weekends as you cover the college basketball season?
Not as much as actually I would like, because I've been busy with stuff at home. But yeah, I would like to get out a little bit more. We'll see if I can get to a couple more games yet this year before March rolls around.
Now we can take you at your. I noticed your seeding this morning. Purdue a number 4 seed, which is guaranteed to where they're going to end up, because nothing will change between now and and March.
Right.
March the whatever. What is the
March 12th.
March 12th, and the Purdue a 4 seed. I believe your highest seeded Big Ten team. But what's been your overall? If you're going to look at it from a January 27th perspective, which is all you can do at this point, where do you see not only just Purdue but the Big Ten?
Well, it's been down this year. The league didn't do anything outside of the conference that helps you build a resume once you get into your conference. I mean, Indiana beat Kansas and North Carolina. Purdue beat Notre Dame. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Wisconsin didn't beat anybody. Maryland didn't beat anybody. Minnesota didn't beat anybody. I mean, nobody's got those higher quality wins outside the league, and certainly the better teams don't. Probably the next best win, maybe in the entire league, is Michigan beating SMU outside the league. So, without the league going out and getting some good wins outside the conference, and then it's hard then when you get in the conference to build up resumes. Purdue and Wisconsin are probably the two teams that other teams can beat to help themselves and move up in the, maybe secure a spot in the tournament. But Purdue can't beat Purdue. Well, they can. We've seen them do it.
Yeah.
But it's and they're done with Wisconsin. So who's Purdue going to beat that really helps themselves at this point to try and climb the ladder and go past some of these ACC teams and who are all really strong, and some of these Big East teams that are all pretty strong. So the upward, mobility for Purdue, other than to just keep winning, is pretty limited. I mean, I don't know. I don't see a realistic scenario that gets Purdue as a 1 seed, even winning all the way out.
Jerry, what's their upside? Because you actually the first question I want to ask you, you just answered about how much upside Purdue has from a seeding perspective, because the Big Ten this season affords so few opportunities to land, quote-unquote marquee wins. But
yeah, they've got good teams.
What do you think their ceiling is?
Probably a 2. And realistically, it's probably more like a 3.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to win all the way out. That's asking too much.
Right.
And then that also means winning the conference tournament. You never know, but this Purdue team is very good. I think it's the best team in the league, but I don't think it's the best team in the league by a lot. Mm-hmm. It's the best team in the league by a small amount.
Yeah.
And but when Purdue plays well, they've shown they can beat anybody. I mean, they were a whisper from beating Villanova. That's one of the best teams in the country. So when Purdue plays well, they can beat anybody. But it's hard to do it every single night through the rigors of a Big Ten season.
Jerry Palm from CBSSports.com, and you are doing it twice a week now, posting brackets on Mondays.
Well, I actually ended up doing 4 this week.
But, only 4.
Yeah, it's actually twice a week, Monday and Friday.
Yeah, and
brackets.
And I like the fact, the one thing that makes yours, and I don't know how the heck you do it, because you're actually placing teams in cities and trying to balance it from that standpoint. I mean, do you know this? I mean, you're an analytical guy, and to say the least, I wish I had your skill there, but the ability to actually put this all together, how long does it take you to do each bracket as you try to assimilate where everybody should be and position them in the spots?
Probably about 4 hours.
Yeah, and is it getting easier now, or once you know the sites and start to know the teams, do you feel like there's still so much to be determined in terms of what these teams can show for themselves between now and March the 12th? I mean, how does that natural progression go for you?
I think it gets easier as the season goes on, because right now if you look at the teams in my bracket, everybody from like the 10 seeds on down have done absolutely nothing to really merit being in a bracket.
Yeah.
Right? It's really more like whose negatives are less offensive. But you've got teams that haven't beaten anyone else in the tournament. You've got teams like Indiana that are below 500 against the top 200 teams in the RPI, which usually gets you left out. But if I left out all the teams that, didn't, that had some big negative thing that the committee normally wouldn't take, then I'd only have about 36 teams. You've got to have more than that. So it's, but those holes get filled as the season goes on, right?
Yeah.
And then you get to Selection Sunday, and maybe you've only got a handful of those teams. Last year was especially bad, but most of the time you only have about a handful of those teams, and where you're trying to guess where the committee will, hold their nose and take somebody to fill those last couple of spots.
Yeah, and you look at this whole situation too, and one of the things that and I'm not 100% up to speed, but now they're going to do almost like the college football show where they're going to announce the top 16 seeds. When that starts here soon, and
February 10th, or 11th, I mean.
Yeah, what does that do for your job, so to speak?
Well, I'll be part of the show,
yeah.
So that'll be fun for me. But for the committee to do that, I mean, it's kind of a natural offshoot of something they do anyway, which is they meet in early February to go through a mock selection process. And if you've ever been through that as part of the media, they stopped doing the media ones now. But so the new committee members can kind of get used to the tools and how they see the data and go through the, sort of a process. And in doing so, they discuss teams and evaluate teams and vote on teams. And so they'll get about halfway through the bracket, and then the staff fills in the rest, and they learn how to do a bracket and all of that. So this is the natural offshoot from that. Yeah. So they will give their top 16 at that time, which will be pretty much right after that meeting, and then and it gives Mark Hollis, the chair of the committee, the Michigan State AD, an opportunity to, well, first of all, generate some buzz about college basketball as it hits the home stretch of the season, but also kind of educate the public in how the committee thinks about not just these teams in particular, but how they sort of compare teams in general at a time of the year where it's a lot less noisy than Selection Sunday, which is really the only other time the public ever hears from the selection committee chair. So it has a chance to be educational. It's definitely going to generate some buzz, and they're not making the mistake that the college football people do of doing it every single week and kind of pigeonholing themselves. There's a lot of games left to play after February 11th, and so they're not really committing to anything at that time.
All right, Purdue could be very well be a part of that top 16,
they could.
And that part will be.
Well, any luck coming off a win over IU?
Yeah, right. Because that would be
not that I haven't looked ahead.
February the 9th, yes, and Purdue's going to have an interesting schedule here from the next couple of weeks. Obviously, it started with that big road win at Michigan State. Well, Jerry, we always appreciate your time, and we will try not to harass you too much, but we will.
I hope you have reason to.
We will, and we appreciate all you do and your interest. Obviously, Jerry, a Purdue graduate, but very, very skilled at this in a very interesting. It's an interesting several weeks heading into things. But Jerry, we'll keep you in mind certainly, and you'll probably hear from us late February, early March to see where we're going with that. So thanks again, Jerry, and have a great rest of the day.
All right, thanks. You too.
All right, Brian. Jerry, and obviously you gotten to know Jerry quite well, in doing another story for the Purdue alumnus on him. But interesting guy, and it's an interesting time for Purdue basketball. You were down we talked to coaches and Matt Painter and et cetera for availability just prior to coming here. Anything new going on for the Boilermakers trip to Lincoln on Sunday?
Yeah, well, Vince Edwards seems okay.
Yeah,
to me, that was an urgent matter, finding out what's wrong with Vincent Edwards, because we heard after the Michigan State game, which he clearly didn't look to be himself, that he had a back issue. He says there's like a sprain. I don't know if it's necessarily his back or his shoulder or what, but he's practicing today. He practiced yesterday, so he's in some pain, but he's gonna get through it. And Purdue needs him. Purdue needs him playing at a high level, and it's good news for Purdue to hear that that's not necessarily serious. Purdue's got to buckle down, for lack of a better term, defensively against Nebraska. They've got a high-scoring backcourt. Glenn
Yeah.
Watson provides some of the same matchup difficulties Nate Mason does.
Yes, very good player.
And Nate Mason, obviously, nobody has to be reminded how that went. So Nebraska's going to throw a high-scoring backcourt and some quickness at Purdue. That's a tough matchup for Purdue sometimes. That's going to be an environment where if Nebraska has some success against Purdue, it's going to kind of take off from there. So Purdue's got to absolutely be on high alert in this game, regardless of the fact that Nebraska's lost 5 games in a row and lost to Rutgers not all that long ago.
Yeah, and this is going to be a game after the Cornhuskers beat Indiana and Maryland on the road. It's been really difficult, but you look at this game and say, they lose to Ohio State at home in a crazy way, and this is a team that it'll be a full arena, so to speak. Great environment there, and I think that part of it will be a lot of fun. It'll be a good environment and a good test for Purdue just to kind of continue to see how they come back after that really important win, obviously, against Michigan State. You look at the schedule upcoming, Brian, and again, we have been talking about this. No games off because Northwestern comes in as Jerry Palm has them as a 7 seed and be their first ever NCAA tournament appearance if the Wildcats make it in, and they're looking very good right now. But it's just an extremely competitive league. Maybe nobody at the top, but it's just going to be that'll be a tough game for Purdue, even though it's at home on Wednesday night.
Yeah, if their jerseys saying Northwestern on the front, they'd be in the top 25.
Yeah.
Easy. They'd be probably right around where Purdue is.
Yeah.
But for some reason they're not. They have a resume that puts them comfortably in the NCAA tournament right now.
Absolutely.
Barring collapse, they are in. That is a top 25 caliber team this particular year. I don't know if they've got the highest caliber wins, but that they're 17-4, whatever it is. They're 6-2 in the Big Ten, something like that.
Yeah.
That is a good team, and that is a team that is going to give Purdue some problems, both at home and especially in Evanston at the end of the year. They're in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
I don't have any question in my mind. They're an NCAA tournament team, and they deserve to be in the NCAA tournament. But the league, by and large, just isn't. I don't know if you want to call it parity or mediocrity, one or the
I
other,
don't know either.
because you have your biggest brands, Michigan State, Ohio State, Indiana. They're all not having the types of seasons they hope to have. And I know that affects perception of the league, but it also kind of is what it is. When your best programs traditionally are all, mediocre or at least not as good as they anticipated being, it obviously doesn't make for the strongest league in the world. I think Wisconsin and Purdue and Maryland are the 3 clearly best teams in the league. Maryland has really surprised me because they're so young.
Yeah.
For them to win games the way they've won games, win all these close games and whatnot, I think that's really a credit to Melo Trimble, and their freshmen have really, really been advanced. So that's been a huge surprise. So I think those are clearly the 3 best teams in a league that's really not that great, and that's not good news for anybody because it's really hard to prove you're something more than people perceive you as when you don't have the opportunities to go prove it. Purdue, for example, has played 1 game against one of the co-best teams in the league to this point, Wisconsin. They did what they had to do there, but they're just not going to have very many opportunities to face highly ranked teams. To get those sort of quality wins, you need to build the sort of resume Purdue wants to have going into March. Every team in the league can say the same thing. Wisconsin can say the same thing. Maryland can say the same thing. So it's just the perceived mediocrity of the Big Ten kind of perpetuates itself because people don't have a chance to prove it wrong by beating big-time opponents.
Indiana was ranked as high as number 3 at one point early in the season, and after wins against Kansas and North Carolina, impressive, albeit the Hoosiers have, and yet that's going to be, February 9th, and Purdue fans don't need to be told how difficult that game will be, but if you win, it's almost like you're expected to do so, even though, again, it will not be an easy game for Purdue. Okay, Brian, we've got a couple minutes left, and Purdue football recruiting, which we touched on a little bit on the opening segment, but another big weekend in terms of there's going to be a flurry of activity, it appears, as we make it the last 120 hours or 5 days to signing day.
Yeah, Purdue's got, I think, 15 commitments right
Right.
now. So figure they're going to sign well in advance of 20. So this is going to be a very busy couple of days before Wednesday. I'd imagine Purdue's probably going to get 5, 6, 7 guys, most likely. I think, you put your emphasis right now on the junior college wide receivers. Purdue wants Isaac Zico and Terry Wright, and I've kind of assumed all along that the pragmatic parts of those kids would say, "Hey, let's go to the wide receiver friendly school that has no wide receivers." So I would anticipate those guys, Purdue having a great shot at them. Purdue needs some linebackers. Cornell Jones and Tobias Larry from Florida both visited last week. They're both seem to have Purdue in pretty high regard as they near their decisions. Purdue's got a group of visitors coming in this weekend with some linebackers, another high school wide receiver, Javante Payton, who's a pretty highly recruited kid that I'm sure Purdue would love to get. So I would anticipate a number of linebackers, defensive linemen, and wide receivers from here on out.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens as we close it out. Stay tuned to the site, and obviously, boiling over kind of yesterday, kind of outlined a lot of the guys coming in this weekend and what status is. So, if you get the chance to look at that, please do so. We will, it is going to be a busy time as Purdue tries to close out its class. It'll be announced officially Wednesday, February 1st, and we'll have a lot more on that in the shows to come. In fact, next week we will look to have an assistant coach, probably somebody to do with recruiting. We don't know exactly who that will be for next week, and also Seth Davis from CBS will join us as well as we'll talk about Purdue basketball and his book on John Wooden that he wrote a year or two ago that has done very well. We'll look forward to doing that. So we want to thank our sponsors, Hilton Garden Inn. When tomorrow's a big day, stay at HGI tonight. State Farm agent Trent Johnson at trentismyagent.com. John Basham and the good folks at Basham Rentals. They are working hard for the 17-18 school year. And Triple X, Greg and Carrie Erzman, I had a chance to visit with them yesterday. They've got some new menu items in store, and you'll be hearing more about that at Triple X and Route 66 on the hill, but on the level of Purdue tradition since 1929. I want to thank Allie, Cammie, Gordon, the good folks at WLFI for all your help. We appreciate all that you do for us, and we'll be back next week, same time, for another edition of Gold and Black Live.